There's always that one hair, that we all like. I'm always like shifting.
We are streaming.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone, to this May 16th monthly meeting of the Executive Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. My name is Kiva Samuel, and I serve as chair of the Planning Commission. Today's meeting is being streamed online in accordance with the state's electronic meeting statute. Requirements of notice, access, and minutes are being met through electronic means. The public and media may watch this meeting live on the Planning, Design, and Development's YouTube page. Participants are muted to minimize interruptions. Please do not unmute unless you're speaking. To make a motion, please state your name before making your first or second. All votes are done by a roll call. Please respond when your name is called. And we will now go through our introductions. Again, I'm Kiva Samuel, serving as chair. Mr. Vice Chair, please.
Philip Gussman, Vice Chair, Planning Commission.
Commissioner Barbie.
Good afternoon, Erin Barbie, Planning Commission.
Commissioner Welton.
It's Douglas Welton, Planning Commission.
Okay. And Commissioner Barbie, can you do audio once more? It was kind of low that time.
Yes, I have to get a little bit closer. Can you hear me now,
Yes.
Chairwoman? Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, and on to our agenda items. We'll begin with a motion for minutes. I did not see any edits needed. Did anyone else find anything that needed correction or have any other discussion? Motion,
Madam
please.
Chair, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Welton. I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as they are presented to us.
And this is Commissioner Barbie. I'll second that.
Motion by Welton, second by Barbie. Commissioner Gussman?
Yes.
Barbie?
Yes.
Welton?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you. That passes unanimous. Work session topics. And before, I'm so sorry. We did commissioner introductions. Please, let's now do staff. Before I ask questions, let's find out who's on the line. Candace, please.
Candace Rory, planning staff.
Siobhan.
Siobhan Davis, planning staff.
Allison.
Allison Craig, interim planning director.
Thank you. Anybody else with us today? Okay. Thank you so very much. So just so that we keep in mind timing, everybody's, winding down to the special date. Are we still, has anything changed in terms of our adoption plan? And before we talk about that, actually, I hadn't had a chance to watch the TAP committee meeting from Thursday. I watched the one on Tuesday, but they postponed the UDO discussion to Thursday. How did that go?
I thought it went well. We ran out of time as usual. There's just a lot to cover. And so we are working on finding another time to have a workshop, and I'm hoping to solidify that today. So really, sorry, I'll elaborate a little bit more. The way we framed it on Thursday was we had our economic impact analysis consultants, and they talked about findings in a couple different areas and said, these are the design recommendations, these are the financial recommendations, or findings rather, I should say findings. And then there's kind of a staff action as a result of that. So whether there was a change being proposed or whether there wasn't a change being proposed. So we didn't get to trees, but we did talk about sidewalls. We talked about driveway access for duplexes and triplexes, affordable housing, open space overlap. I'm sure there's some others. Happy to send you the presentation if that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're still thinking July for council.
We are still thinking that, but we are also thinking about some other options as well if we need to.
Our June 6th meeting, we will have a UDO update. And Allison, if you don't mind, you can, if you like to reserve that presentation distribution to that meeting, not necessarily going through the presentation, but at least having it available prior to the meeting so that if any folks have questions about it, maybe we can discuss the questions specifically with the UDO update. I think that the Envision My Ride recommendations, you ran out of time on that in the first TAP committee meeting, so I know it'll take the bulk of the meeting agenda is what I'm thinking. Does that sound good? Yes? Am I muted?
You're on mute, Allison.
Oh,
Sorry. Yeah, no, I think that sounds great.
okay.
Sorry.
Future work session topics. I know we talked about parking and that's currently in the parking lot, so to speak. I think we'll probably plan to bring that to commission in the fall. We don't have an August meeting for the Planning Commission. July, I don't know if we would have anything solidified in terms of a speaker.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I believe July was the one that we were going to slate to bring the housing and homelessness group forward. So I just needed to hear from this body that that was okay. And then we can, I'll connect them with staff to solidify that date.
Okay. And that July meeting, I think that's the one, the 4th falls on the Monday, or the holiday is that first Monday. So we meet on the 2nd Monday. I would be okay with that. Do you happen to know how much agenda time would need to be allotted?
Typically, they've taken 30 minutes or less, and that is with question and answer. So we can certainly adjust that.
Okay. Thank you so very much. And CTR, Allison, I think that we had spoken about bringing Ed back for like a part 2 for CTR. I think there may have been some changes or updates that they've made and considerations. Would it be okay for July?
I'm going to ask Candace because she's been helping sort of put together a master schedule of the CDOT stuff and the planning stuff all together so that we can see how everything looks. Candace, can you pull that up? And I haven't had a chance to review it since you sent it to me this morning.
Yeah, so they are going, that is the actual, July 11th is their public hearing date actually for the streets manual. So I know that they'll have information available to share, so maybe they can share information prior to the public hearing that evening.
So the streets manual public hearing is on 7/11.
Potentially, tentatively.
Okay. I'm wondering if we should switch out CAPS and CTR for June. Or there may be, we can leave that as is. I think for Ed, because he, this will be kind of somewhat of an update on CTR, I think if we took about a 30, 45 minutes for him on that July agenda, it should be okay. If they're available.
Yes, I can reach out to him. That public hearing, like I said, that public hearing date is a working date, so I'm not really sure if that is the date they've actually set, but that'll be the time frame that they're looking at. So,
Okay.
yeah, I could discuss that with him.
Awesome, thank you so very much. Any other?
Madam Chair, this may be a red herring. 2 or 3 years ago, we used to have this meeting where all of the towns within the county would get together and they would talk about their planning objectives and things for the year. I don't know, does that meeting still happen, Allison? I went with Taiwo 2-3 years ago up to Davidson, and I don't know if that meeting still happens.
So I actually coordinate that meeting. That's planning coordinated committee. And
Okay.
when Taiwo, so yes, Taiwo typically spearheaded those meetings. And in between the transition of Taiwo leaving and Allison taking over, we haven't been able to coordinate all the directors to schedule the spring meeting or the summer meeting. And actually me and Allison had that on our agenda to talk about, to see if that's something we could still do this year or not.
Yeah, I just from my perspective, one of the things we have in our the title of this organization is Mecklenburg. And if you look back over our agenda for the last year or so, I would think that the people that care about Mecklenburg might feel a little bit underserved. And I thought as a future topic, if we just give those folks, everybody gets 5 minutes, you get 6 slides. Tell us what you're doing. Because there were some decisions that were made in some of the other jurisdictions in the towns that were kind of interesting. I will just leave it at they were kind of interesting. So, I mean, I would put that as something that we could do, and we could do in 35, 40 minutes worth of our time, if those folks were willing to come down. And again, give us the elevator pitch, give us insight. I don't care about the details of what you're doing, but what are the things that you're doing that are actionable items that add value to your community? If people can actually answer that question, and I do sometimes doubt that, but if they can actually answer that question, then it would be very insightful for all those people who say you have Mecklenburg in your title.
I agree. Yeah, and Candace and I talked about it just last week. And I think Candace, it reminded me, I think the last time, because of the pandemic, we just did a newsletter. There hasn't actually been a meeting.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I think the first cancellation was because of the pandemic. And then, yeah, here we are.
Yeah, I don't know when it was that I went, but it was probably 2018, 19, something like that.
It was 2019.
2019, yeah.
Yeah, so we're Candace and I are working on it. I agree with you. We need to get something back on the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just saying for our meeting, because it's virtual, they don't even have to drive here. Dial in, give us 5 minutes, and lightning talks happen in every other industry. They can happen in the planning business too. So let's do that. And again, some of our commissioners may not get the exposure. I listened to the town of Huntersville's commission meeting one night. I may be a nerd because of this, but I did. And they said things that I thought were very interesting.
You're not the only one who watches some of those other city meetings, by the way.
And if there were anyone else I would think would do it, Phil, I'm not saying that I could tell you were a nerd from far away, but yes. But I'm just saying, again, because we are still doing our meetings virtually, the ability to get it, all we need are 5 minutes of their time, and I think that would be very useful for the commission, just in terms of expanding their exposure to what's going on in the county, because some of the things we do have an effect on those other places. And okay, I'll admit it, maybe some of the things they do have an effect here as well. In terms of Charlotte, we all live in Charlotte. It's the perfect place.
It's definitely reciprocal.
Yeah.
That's probably especially of note these days. The planning coordinating committee, I think, consists of town commissioners. I know Huntersville has their own. So funny you mentioned that, Phil. I'm thinking about yesterday's conversation. But it also includes bodies like Mr. Lucaria or in CMS and parts of the planning staff. So I believe it is Matthews. If you guys remember, I mentioned that Commissioner Spencer is an appointment of CMS on the city side, I believe. And CMS had contemplated replacing Sam or backfilling that appointment with a student. They made the request. We've since kind of dissolved that particular request, but they still want to see how that might happen. And I think it was Matthews who has a student on their, it's either Matthews or Mint Hill who has a student on their planning board. And just wanted to open up some communication to that regard too. So maybe that might be the direction that we could do that as well, just so that Chair Dashu, we can kind of make some headway on that request. There was no urgency with that. We kind of explored ways to make that happen. Does it align with school year? Does it align with just our regular, like a 1-year fiscal calendar time frame? But at this point, we're still fleshing it out, seeing how it might best work for all of our parties involved. And maybe we can kind of take notes from Matthew's menu. I can't remember which. So we've talked about, we're now in September, and September is our retreat.
I was going to suggest the retreat might be a good opportunity if we can coordinate it, whether we're virtual or in person, even to have guest speakers come from all these different bodies for some portion of the time. And it's usually an opportunity for us to be able to prepare people a little bit for what they're about to see with the longer time frame.
Assuming that my fellow commissioners deem me worthy to repeat my term as chair, I would suggest September 9th as the retreat date. We're typically doing it the last or second Thursday, Friday of the month. Does anybody currently have any conflicts with that date?
I like it.
I will be with child.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But
I would imagine any date in September will probably be a no-go then.
yeah,
Big
he'll
challenge.
be like 5 weeks old or less at that point. So you might just have to count me out.
Understood.
Anybody can come in for the Zoom call. I'm just saying.
If it is a
That
Zoom
would be-
call, count me in, but
Yeah,
I will,
I hope
I'm
it's
not gonna
not,
come
but-
in person.
Yeah, my preference I am encouraging folks to start back in person in June. You guys probably heard me say that in March and April and May, but I think it's time. I think there's a different synergy when folks are together. Okay, what else? Siobhan, Candace, do I need to put that request in writing or verbalizing it? Is that sufficient? Again, assuming Bill and I.
Not to be too optimistic, there are no other nominations at this point.
I was gonna say, I feel like you could feel pretty confident
Pretty confident, I
that
think.
we're all behind you on this.
Listen, you never know.
I love how humble you are, Chair, but just know it's y'all.
Madam Chair, no, we can put a hold on calendars and move forward with that date unless we hear from majority of the commission that that's an issue. You can make the decision to make that the date.
I believe we only have one pregnant commissioner at this point, so the only good excuse for not making it.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are any other items for future work session topics, this is the time. For our planning committee, of course, UDO is probably up for May and June. I would imagine June being the tentative recommendation.
And based on what Allison said, I'm assuming we're not talking a special meeting yet, though, of course, we'll remain flexible. If there's any date, if you can just, any date even you want us to hold going forward, just zap out the email at least, and so we can have the best opportunity to get all 7 of us there. I prefer to go in with the full slate if possible.
Phil, this is Douglas. Are you guys going to have a substantive discussion tomorrow night? Or are you waiting until the draft comes out to have the most substantive discussion?
I suspect we will be more of a placeholder for tomorrow unless something surprise comes to us.
Okay.
I'm not expecting. I talked to Laura, and Allison might have more to say though on that front. I suspect it's going to be a relatively routine meeting.
Okay. I was going to join your party.
We all want to see the draft, so
yeah.
Having said that,
what you got?
So I think when we originally discussed the strategy around UDO and feedback from commission, we talked about commission providing feedback for May. Yes. Goes to planning committee for fleshing out in May. Is that still the plan? Or because I think my hesitation, or at least my worry, is that if you try to do it all in one night after the draft, there will not be enough time. So I'm thinking if Laura has a hint of the few items that came out of our May 6th, May 7th, May 1st, 2nd, whenever that, May 2nd meeting, the feedback that came out of commission from the May 2nd meeting, if there is something that satisfies those concerns or at least addresses those concerns in the draft or prior to tomorrow's meeting, no harm, no foul. However, if those thoughts need to be fleshed out, we have time and can give those notes to staff going into second draft was the original plan.
Right.
So if something has changed or if you guys figure there's a better direction for that, can you let me know what your feedback is?
Certainly. I think that what I've heard so far from Laura, at least in the direction that staff seem to be talking, I think it will be a lot of it, I won't say is moving in our direction or however you want to put it. I'm not saying that, everything goes away and there's no problem and nothing to debate. But I think that what we know and what I understand is coming in the draft, this version of the draft, I believe Laura's ready to support many of the things we said we want to change.
Okay.
So that's why I'm presuming it's going to be, now it's possible, certainly, like I said, it's certainly possible someone finally decides to bring up something all new or something like that. And we'll certainly, I'll give the opportunity so we can continue to inform the effort and all of us be informed on how what are the elements we haven't considered yet. But I do feel it's getting a little exhaustive as far as if we have a whole new idea at this point, I'm, not to diminish it, but I'm reluctant to start over from scratch on every point.
And public hearings the 13th? Do I have that right? June?
And there might be more to be said after that as well. So that's why I'm kind of like, I know we're going to be talking more at the June meeting, even if it isn't the final vote.
I would be very supportive of what Phil was saying in the sense that I think that the pie is 95% baked. Most of the things that would come up now are people just nitpicking details and finding very unintentional loopholes in in things, which they're going to continue to find even after the approval, regardless of what the planning committee says. Yeah.
And I think also what went into that thought process as I was making that calculation, Douglas and Phil, was that the May 5th session for council would kind of help us make some direction in terms of feedback. So, okay, I'm good if you all are. Having said that, we are at our calendar, I believe. Is that where we're at? I do, back to the agenda, actually, Candace, please. I think tomorrow's date for planning. Okay. I printed out the one that was sent out and it had May 18th, but we've got the right date up here. Okay, so back to calendar. So full body planning commission meeting next is June 6th. And zoning committee moved to June 7th due to election day being on May 17th, so push public hearings to May 23rd. June 20th, planning this group meets again. I don't think there's anything missing here.
Unless there's a special session on committee, if we're trying to fit something in between timelines and everything, but.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is we could probably tag, it'll be the only meeting that happens in August, but there would be a zoning committee meeting potentially, I guess, in August, unless there's got to be one sometime in there.
It always is. I
Yeah.
say that mission gets, oh, we'll get a vacation, but no.
No.
It's just planning
Yeah.
committee gets the break.
Yeah, I
Totally.
mean, I'm assuming that council, we had the zoning meeting is pushed back a week this month. I am assuming that will not happen again in any of this time before the election. So that is what I'm assuming.
Which election, Douglas? There's like
actual-
8 of them between now
the
and
municipal election that's theoretically people have said is in July.
theoretically. Oh my gosh, don't say that.
Well, you never can tell. People can file a lawsuit just about any time nowadays.
I do not anticipate their.
Yeah, I don't either, but
So in light of that, though, obviously we're missing Astrid. She completed her last meeting. And I don't think I'm so much concerned about zoning committee work session, but more so making the switch for whoever might be the filler, effective fairly immediately prior to the zoning hearings meeting. I've got to get that fleshed out, and I hope to do that between today and Wednesday morning. And I will send probably the body recommendation on who that person will be, and then also what July looks like in terms of committee assignments. I'll put that as up to you. Bill, do you have some time in your?
I do.
is the meeting supposed to be over now?
No.
Somebody's timer?
No, it's a very timely phone call though. Tomorrow, I'll shoot you a text to see what time is good for you, Phil. Other than that, is there anything else? Calendar looks good. I would caution zoning committee work session. I think when we're coming back off of a break, Dave sometimes asks for an additional day to make sure staff is prepared. So whoever may be on zoning committee for July, you might want to anticipate a delay from staff, but we can connect with Dave, see what he thinks on that. Other than that, calendar looks good. Any changes? Any edits? Not motion.
Motion to
Let's
approve,
do it.
Justin. I never do.
Second, Welton.
Motion by Gusman, I think, and second by Walton. Okay. Commissioner Barbie,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
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 Chair votes yes, thank you. And is there anything else for consideration for today's meeting? If not, I will consider us adjourned. That one was fairly timely, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate it.
On
All right.
schedule.
Have a great day,
Happy
everyone.
Monday, everybody.
Bye.